The single most bizarre and potentially life-altering question I've ever been asked came from my 7-year-old nephew Leo. It wasn't about dinosaurs or why the sky is blue. It wasn't a request for one more story or 5 more minutes of screen time. It was a question whispered in the humid, steam-filled air of my bathroom that stopped my heart and sent my mind into a frantic tailspin. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and glistening with a fear I couldn't yet comprehend, and he said, "Uncle Alex, can you get in the shower with me? Now, before you let your imagination run wild, before you jump to the darkest possible conclusion, you have to understand. You have to know who I am, who Leo is, and the unbreakable, complicated, and profoundly ordinary bond that exists between us. My life isn't the stuff of high drama. I'm a graphic designer. I work from a small apartment that smells faintly of coffee and desperation. And my most exciting social event in a typical week is deciding which streaming service to cancel. I am, by all accounts, a quiet man, a safe man, or so I thought. My sister Sarah is the sun to my moon. She's 4 years older, a single mom, and a force of nature. She burst into the world with a yell and hasn't stopped since. When she found out she was pregnant with Leo at 22, she just squared her shoulders, bought a stack of parenting books she never had time to read, and got on with it. Her ex, Leo's father, is a ghost story, a name mentioned in hushed, regretful tones before the subject is swiftly changed. It's always been Sarah and Leo against the world, and me, their reliable, slightly boring backup. Leo is my world. He's this perfect, chaotic blend of Sarah's fiery spirit and a gentleness that seems all his own. He has her unruly curls, but his eyes are a soft, thoughtful brown, like old leather-bound books. He's the kind of kid who will spend an hour meticulously arranging his toy cars into a traffic jam, then narrate a complex, dramatic story about each driver's life. He's sensitive. He feels things deeply. A sad part in a movie can reduce him to tears, and a genuinely funny joke can make him laugh so hard he can't breathe. He's a creature of immense joy and immense fear, often in the same 5-minute span. Because of Sarah's demanding job as a nurse, often working erratic, grueling hours, I'm Leo's designated go-to. I'm the one who picks him up from school when a shift runs long. I'm the one who builds pillow forts on rainy afternoons and teaches him the finer points of making microwave popcorn without setting it on fire. Our relationship is easy, built on a foundation of shared jokes, silly voices, and an unspoken understanding that we are each other's person. So, when Sarah called me on that particular Friday, it was just another part of our well-established routine. Her voice was frazzled, buzzing with the kind of energy that meant she'd been on her feet for 12 hours straight. "Alex, hey, look, I am so sorry to do this, but I'm in a bind," she started, and I could already hear the apology in her tone. I leaned back in my office chair, the one with the mysterious stain on the cushion that I've given up on identifying. "Let me guess," I said, a smile playing on my lips. "The hospital has been abducted by aliens, and you're the only one who can communicate with them through the medium of interpretive dance." A short, sharp laugh on the other end. "Close. Dr. Michaels' daughter has a dance recital, and he was supposed to cover the late shift, but now she's running a fever, and long story short, I have to pull a double. I won't be home until after 2 in the morning. I hate to ask, but could you—" "Say no more," I interrupted. "Leo and I have a very important date, with a large pepperoni pizza and a documentary about megalodons. It's a matter of national security." The relief in her voice was palpable. "Oh, thank God, Alex, you're a lifesaver. I'm a wreck. I feel like I haven't seen him properly in days." "You're saving lives, Sarah. I'm just ensuring the next generation understands the predatory habits of prehistoric sharks. We all have our part to play." I heard her rummaging around in the background, the clink of keys, the sound of a bag being zipped. "There's just one thing," she said, her voice dropping slightly. "He needs a shower. He had soccer practice, and he's basically a mud sculpture with a soccer jersey on. I tried to get him to do it before I left for my first shift, but he was weird about it. Put up a fight." "Weird how?" I asked, my fingers pausing over my keyboard. "I don't know, just antsy. Said the water was too loud or something. He's been going through a phase. Just make sure he gets one, okay? I don't want him going to bed like that. His sheets will never recover." "Consider it done," I said, my confidence unwavering. "I'll deploy tactical shower protocol. We'll use a diversionary tactic involving excessive bubble bath and a rubber ducky named Admiral Quackers. He won't know what hit him." Sarah laughed again, a warmer, more genuine sound this time. You're the best. I'll owe you big time. I'm dropping him off in 10. Love you. Love you too. Now go save some lives. I'll handle the mud monster. The call ended, and I saved my work, the smile still on my face. A shower. A simple, mundane task. I'd overseen dozens of Leo's showers. It was no big deal. I closed my laptop, the quiet hum of the apartment settling around me. I had no idea that in less than 3 hours, my perception of simple, mundane tasks would be shattered, and I would be standing in my own bathroom, facing a decision that would test the very core of who I thought I was. True to her word, Sarah arrived 10 minutes later, a whirlwind of scrubs and exhaustion. Leo tumbled out of the backseat of her car, a whirlwind of dirt and boundless energy. He launched himself at my legs, nearly knocking me over. Uncle Alex, did you know that a volcano can shoot rocks the size of a house into the air? A house! I did not know that, buddy, I said, ruffling his matted, sweaty curls. But I am now appropriately terrified. And also, you smell like a soccer team that's been wrestling a swamp. Let's get you inside. Sarah gave me a grateful, tired smile as she handed me Leo's overnight bag. He's all yours. There's clean pajamas in there, and his favorite dinosaur, toothbrush. Don't let him sweet-talk you out of the shower. He's a master negotiator. I'm immune to his charms, I lied, as Leo beamed up at me, his face a perfect picture of innocence that could, and often did, get him anything he wanted. She kissed the top of his head. Be good for your uncle. I'll see you in the morning, my love. Bye, Mom, he yelled, already dragging his bag towards my apartment door, his mind clearly moving on to the next adventure. Sarah gave me one last appreciative look before getting back in her car and driving off into the encroaching twilight. And just like that, it was just me and Leo, the dynamic duo, the pizza and megalodon enthusiasts. The evening unfolded exactly as I'd predicted. We ordered the pizza, a glorious, greasy masterpiece that we ate on the living room floor while watching the giant shark documentary. Leo provided a running commentary, gasping at the CGI reconstructions and offering up theories on what could have possibly killed a 60-foot shark. My personal favorite was a bigger shark with a laser on its head. The kid had a future in screenwriting. As the credits rolled, the initial frenetic energy of the day began to catch up with him. His movements slowed, his commentary became less frequent, and he started to lean against my shoulder, his body warm and heavy. The pizza box was a cardboard graveyard of crusts and forgotten pepperoni slices. All right, Captain Chaos, I said softly, nudging him gently. Time to get the swamp creature cleaned up. Shower time. He stiffened. It was a subtle change, but I felt it. The relaxed, pliant boy suddenly became a bundle of tension beside me. Can't we just go to bed? He mumbled, his face buried in my side. I'm tired. I know you are, buddy, I said, adopting the gentle but firm tone I'd learned from Sarah. But you remember what Mom said. You've got to wash off all that soccer practice. You don't want Admiral Quackers to get stuck in the mud, do you? He shook his head, but didn't move. I don't like the shower, he whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. What's not to like? It's warm, it's got water. It's basically a personal rainstorm that you control. It's awesome. I was trying to keep it light, to use humor to diffuse whatever this weird mood was. He just shook his head again, his curls brushing against my arm. It's too loud, and the water gets in my eyes. Okay, we can solve that. We have the ultimate anti-eye water weapon. I stood up and held out a hand. The super-duper anti-monster space-age shower cap. It's a marvel of modern engineering. He looked up at me, his brown eyes clouded with a genuine apprehension that went beyond the usual kid reluctance to bathe. This wasn't him being lazy. This was something else. But I pushed the thought aside. He was tired. It had been a long day. A little coaxing, a little fun, and he'd be fine. I was his uncle. I had this. He reluctantly took my hand, and I led him towards the bathroom, his small feet dragging on the hardwood floor. I could feel the resistance in every step. I turned on the light, the small, windowless room flooding with a stark white glare. I started the water, adjusting the temperature until it was perfectly warm, a comforting cascade against the porcelain tub. See? Perfect, I said, trying to infuse my voice with a confidence I was starting to feel I was losing.
I'll even get you some extra bubbles. We'll make a bubble beard. You can be Santa Claus in the summer.
I handed him a towel and turned to face the wall, giving him his privacy to get undressed. I heard the soft thump of his clothes hitting the floor, the rustle of the shower curtain being pulled back. I waited for the familiar sound of him stepping into the tub, the little sigh of contentment he usually made when the warm water hit his skin. It didn't come. Instead, there was just silence. A heavy, thick silence that was broken only by the steady hiss of the water from the shower head. "Leo? You okay in there?" I asked, still facing the wall. I heard a small, choked sound. A sob? I turned around. He was standing by the tub, naked and shivering, but not from the cold. His whole body was trembling. His eyes were fixed on the stream of water coming from the shower as if it were a venomous snake about to strike. "Hey, what's wrong?" I asked, my voice softening as I took a step towards him. "It's just water, buddy." He shook his head, his lip quivering. "I can't." "Can't what?" "I can't get in." My first instinct was frustration, a flash of it, hot and sharp. We'd been at this for 10 minutes. It was late. I was tired. He was being difficult. But then I looked at his face, really looked at it, and the frustration evaporated, replaced by a wave of concern. This wasn't a power play. This was raw, unadulterated fear, the kind of fear that paralyzes. "Okay," I said, my voice calm and even. "Okay, we don't have to. Let's just talk for a second. What are you afraid of?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. He just stared at the water, his small hands clenched into fists at his sides. It's in there. What's in there, Leo? There's nothing in there. It's just a tub." "It's not," he whispered, his voice trembling. "It's in the drain." "The drain." Of course. The classic childhood fear, the monster in the pipes. I could handle this. This was familiar territory. "Okay, the drain." "I see," I said, playing along. "Well, we can't have a drain monster. That's a serious code violation. Let's go check it out." I knelt by the tub, the steam beginning to fog up my glasses. I peered into the chrome grate of the drain. "Hello? Is there a monster in here?" "This is Uncle Alex, official monster inspector. If you're in there, you have 5 seconds to vacate the premises. 5, 4, 3. I looked back at Leo. He hadn't moved. He was still watching me, his expression a mixture of hope and terror. My little game wasn't working, see? "Nothing there," I said, trying to sound more convincing than I felt. "It's monster-free. Guaranteed." He shook his head again, a single tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. "He's hiding. He only comes out when the water is on." Ah, a more cunning monster than I'd initially given him credit for. This required a different strategy. "Okay," I said, getting to my feet. "New plan. How about this? I'll stand right here. I won't leave. I'll be on guard. I'll watch the drain the whole time. If so much as a single bubble comes out of there that looks suspicious, I'll shut off the water immediately. I'll be your bodyguard." He considered this, his brow furrowed in concentration. He took a tentative step towards the tub, his hand reaching out to touch the shower curtain. He was close. I could feel it. "You promise?" he asked, his voice small. "I promise," I said, my heart swelling with a mixture of pity and love for this terrified little boy. "I won't let anything happen to you." He took a deep breath, held it, and put one foot into the tub, then the other. He stood there, rigid, under the spray of the water, his eyes squeezed shut. He was in. Mission accomplished. Or, so I thought. He stood there for a full minute, not moving, just letting the water cascade over his head and shoulders. His body was still tense, a coiled spring of anxiety. "You okay, buddy?" I asked gently. He opened his eyes, and they were filled with a fresh wave of panic. "I can't wash," he choked out. "I can't close my eyes. He'll get me if I close my eyes." This was a new level of fear. This wasn't just a monster in the drain. This was a full-blown, all-consuming phobia. My usual bag of tricks, jokes, distractions, silly games was proving utterly useless. I was out of my depth. I felt a pang of helplessness, a sharp, uncomfortable feeling. I was supposed to be the adult, the one who could fix things, and I couldn't fix this. "Okay," I said, my mind racing. "Okay, you don't have to close your eyes. You can keep them open. I'm right here. I'm watching." He picked up the washcloth, but his hand was shaking so badly he dropped it. It landed with a wet slap at his feet. He looked down at it, then back up at me, and his face crumpled. He started to cry in earnest, great, heaving sobs that shook his small frame. "I can't do it," he wailed, the sound swallowed by the noise of the shower. "I can't. I want to get out." My heart broke. Seeing him so terrified, so undone by something as simple as a shower, was physically painful. I wanted to scoop him up, wrap him in a towel, and tell him he never had to shower again. But I couldn't. He had to learn to face his fears. That's what being a kid was all about, right? But how? How do you force a child to confront a terror that is so real to them, so visceral, without traumatizing them further? I stood there frozen, the steam curling around me, the sound of his crying mingling with the hiss of the water. I was failing him. I was failing my sister. I was a useless, helpless bystander to my own nephew's terror. And then, through the tears and the steam, he looked at me. His eyes, red-rimmed and desperate, locked onto mine, and he asked the question that would change everything. "Uncle Alex," he sobbed, his voice barely audible over the water. "I'm so scared. Please, can you get in with me?" Time stopped. The sound of the shower, the hum of the bathroom fan, the frantic beating of my own heart. It all faded into a dull, distant roar. The world narrowed to the two of us. Him, small and naked and terrified in the tub. Me, standing on the outside, fully clothed and utterly floored. My brain, my logical, socially conditioned 21st century brain, immediately short-circuited. 1,000 alarm bells started screaming at once. 1,000 red flags waved frantically in my mind's eye. "What? Say no." "Absolutely not. He's 7, you're 26. Ta-to. Pete, this is wrong. This is so wrong. What would people think? Or what if Sarah found out? What if someone walked in? What if this is misconstrued?" The thoughts came at me like a physical assault, a barrage of panic and social anxiety. I saw headlines. I saw police officers. I saw the look of horror and disgust on my sister's face. I saw my quiet, safe life imploding, shattered by a single, well-intentioned, catastrophic mistake. The word inappropriate echoed in my head, a venomous hiss. This was a line you didn't cross, a boundary you didn't even approach. It was one of the unspoken rules of adulthood, a fundamental law of human interaction. An adult man does not get in the shower with a 7-year-old boy. End of story. I took a half step back, a reflexive, defensive movement. "Leo, no," I said, my voice tight, strangled. "I can't do that." His face fell. The desperate hope in his eyes was extinguished, replaced by a fresh wave of despair. "But I'm scared," he whimpered, his tears flowing freely again. "Please, Uncle Alex, please. The monster, he'll get me." And in that moment, as I stood there, wrestling with my own internal panic, I saw it. I saw past the shocking, taboo nature of his request. I looked past the adult implications, the social awkwardness, the potential for disaster. And I just saw him. I saw Leo, my Leo. A little boy who was more scared than I had ever seen him. A little boy who wasn't asking for anything inappropriate. He was asking for safety. He was asking for his uncle, his protector, the one person in the world he felt completely safe with, to stand between him and the monster in the drain. My mind was a battlefield. On one side was the voice of reason, the voice of society, the voice of self-preservation. It screamed at me to refuse, to find another way, to do anything but this. It painted vivid, terrifying pictures of the consequences. It told me I was risking everything, but on the other side was a quieter voice, a softer voice, the voice of my heart. It was the voice that remembered holding him as a newborn, a tiny, wrinkled creature in my arms. It was the voice that remembered teaching him to ride a bike, his small hand gripping mine as he wobbled down the sidewalk. It was the voice that knew his favorite color, his least favorite food, the specific way he liked his toast cut. It was the voice that loved him. And that voice was asking a simple question. What is more important, a social rule, or the emotional well-being of a terrified child? The fear of what people might think, or the reality of what this child is feeling? I looked at his trembling form, at the utter vulnerability in his posture. I thought about my sister and what she would want. Would she want me to adhere to some abstract code of conduct, even if it meant leaving her son sobbing and terrified in a shower? Or would she want me to do whatever it took to make her son feel safe, to make him feel loved? I knew the answer. I knew it with every fiber of my being. The battle in my head was over. The loud, panicky voice of reason had lost. I took a deep breath, the air thick and humid. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Okay, Leo, I'll get in with you." His head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Really?" "Really," I said, the decision solidifying in my mind, a strange sense of calm washing over me. "But we have rules. Rule number 1, I'm keeping my underwear on. I'm not getting my clothes all wet." "That would be silly." A tiny, watery smile touched his lips. It was the first smile I'd seen since we'd entered the bathroom. It was like the sun breaking through the clouds. Rule number 2, I continued, my voice gaining a bit of its usual strength. This is a strictly monster fighting mission. No funny business. We get in, we wash, we defeat the drain monster, and we get out. Got it? He nodded vigorously, his tears starting to subside. Got it. Okay, I said, my heart thumping a nervous but resolute rhythm against my ribs. Stand back. Make room for the reinforcements. I turned away from him, my hands fumbling with the button of my jeans. My fingers felt clumsy, thick. I was acutely aware of the strangeness of the situation, the sheer, unadulterated weirdness of what I was about to do. I quickly stripped down to my boxer shorts, my movements efficient and devoid of any hint of sensuality. This was a medical procedure, a tactical operation, anything but what it might look like to an outside observer. I pulled back the shower curtain, the plastic ring scraping against the rod. The warm, wet air hit me like a wall. I looked at Leo, who was watching me with an expression of pure, unadulterated relief. He wasn't seeing a half-naked man, he was seeing his shield, his protector. I took a deep breath and swung my leg over the side of the tub. The porcelain was slick under my bare foot. I stepped in, the warm water immediately soaking my boxer shorts clinging to my skin. The tub, which had seemed perfectly adequate for a small boy, was suddenly cramped and impossibly small. I had to hunch over to avoid hitting my head on the shower head. My knees were practically in my chest. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable. It was, in a word, ridiculous. I positioned myself behind Leo, creating a human barrier between him and the dreaded drain. I put my hands on his small, wet shoulders. They were still tense, but some of the rigidity had started to melt away. "Okay, soldier," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the small, tiled space. "Uncle Alex is on the scene. Report." He pointed a trembling finger towards the drain. "He's down there," he whispered, as if the monster had ears. "Well, he's not getting past me," I said, my voice full of a bravado I didn't entirely feel. "I'm like a giant hairy wall of protection. Nothing gets through this wall." I picked up the washcloth he had dropped and squeezed some of his kid-friendly strawberry-scented body wash onto it. I lathered it up, the sweet smell filling the humid air. "Okay, let's start with the arms. We need to make sure they're clean and strong for monster punching," I said, gently washing his arm. He stood there, letting me clean him, his body slowly relaxing under my touch. I washed his back, his legs, his feet. I was careful, methodical, my movements purely functional. I was a nurse, a doctor, a mechanic performing a necessary task. There was nothing else to it. "The hair is the most important part," I said, picking up the bottle of tear-free shampoo. "This is our secret weapon. The monster hates the smell of strawberries. It confuses him." I poured some into my hand and worked it into a lather in his hair. He tilted his head back, trusting me completely. "Now, we have to be very careful here," I said, my voice low and serious. "We have to rinse it without getting any in your eyes. We don't want to give the monster an advantage. I'm going to use my hand like a shield. Ready?" He nodded, his eyes squeezed shut. I cupped my hand over his forehead, creating a visor, and used the shower head to gently rinse the suds from his hair. The water ran down my hand, away from his face. He didn't flinch. He didn't cry. He just stood there, safe under my protection. Once he was clean, I felt a sense of triumph. We had done it. We had faced the monster and won. "Okay," I said, turning off the water. The sudden silence was deafening. "Mission accomplished. The drain monster has been defeated by the combined forces of strawberry shampoo and Uncle Alex's amazing shield hand. He won't be back for a long time." Leo turned around and looked up at me, his face clean and his eyes clear. He wrapped his wet, soapy arms around my legs in a hug that was so full of gratitude and love it almost knocked me over. "Thank you, Uncle Alex," he said, his voice muffled against my wet skin. "You're the best monster fighter ever." I hugged him back, my heart feeling so full it felt like it might burst. "Just doing my job, kid," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Just doing my job." Getting out of the shower was an even more awkward maneuver than getting in. I had to climb out first, my wet boxer shorts dripping all over the floor, then turn and lift him out. I wrapped him in a big, fluffy towel, and he snuggled into it, a happy, warm, clean little burrito. I quickly toweled myself off and threw on a pair of sweatpants, my mind already starting to race ahead to the next problem. The immediate crisis was over. Leo was safe and clean and no longer terrified. But a new, More insidious fear was starting to creep in. The fear of the aftermath. What if he told Sarah? What would he say? How would it sound? Mom, Uncle Alex got in the shower with me. Out of context, stripped of the fear and the monster and the desperation, it sounded horrifying. It sounded like the beginning of a story that ends with a restraining order and a lifetime of shame. I watched him as he got dressed in his dinosaur pajamas, his movements cheerful and relaxed. He was completely oblivious to the social landmine he was now carrying. To him, it was a simple, happy memory. His uncle had saved him from a monster, that was all. But I knew how it could be twisted. I knew how it would sound to a tired, overprotective mother. I knew how it would sound to anyone. As we settled into his bed for a story, the one about the 3 little pigs, his current favorite, I could barely focus on the words. My mind was replaying the scene in the shower over and over, analyzing every move, every word. Had I crossed a line? Yes, I had. A very clear, very important line. But had I done it for the right reasons? I believed I had. But would anyone else see it that way? Leo fell asleep halfway through the story, his head resting on my shoulder, his breathing soft and even. I carefully extricated myself and tucked him in, pressing a soft kiss on his forehead. He looked so peaceful, so innocent, so safe. I walked out of the bedroom and into the living room, the apartment quiet and still. The pizza box was still on the floor, a reminder of a simpler time just an hour ago. I sank onto the sofa, my head in my hands. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving behind a hollow, anxious ache. I had to tell Sarah. I knew I did. I couldn't let her hear it from Leo. I had to explain it to her myself, to give her the context, to show her that my intentions, however misguided, were pure. The thought of that conversation made my stomach clench. But the alternative, the thought of her finding out some other way, was unthinkable. I waited, I paced, I checked my phone every 30 seconds. The minutes stretched into hours. Every creak of the building, every car horn outside, made me jump. I was a bundle of raw nerves. Finally, at a little after 2 a.m, I heard her key in the lock. The door opened, and Sarah stumbled in, her face etched with exhaustion. She dropped her bag by the door with a heavy thud. "Hey," she said, her voice a weary whisper. "He okay?" "He's fine," I said, my own voice sounding strange and tight to my ears. "He's asleep. He was great." She nodded, heading for the kitchen. "I'm just going to get some water and then I'll get him." "Thank you so much, Alex. I owe you." "Sarah," I said, my heart pounding. "Wait. We need to talk." She stopped, turning to look at me. She must have seen the look on my face, because her own expression shifted from tired to concerned. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Is he hurt?" No, he's not hurt," I said quickly. "It's just the shower. There was an incident." Her brow furrowed. "An incident? What kind of incident?" I took a deep breath. There was no easy way to say this, no way to ease into it. I just had to say it. "He was really scared," I started, my voice shaking slightly, like really, really scared. "Of a monster in the drain. He was crying. He wouldn't get in. He wouldn't wash. He was completely panicking." I paused, trying to gauge her reaction. She was just listening, her eyes fixed on mine. "I tried everything," I continued, the words tumbling out of me in a rush. "I tried joking. I tried being serious. I tried checking for monsters. Nothing worked. He was just terrified. And then he asked me something." I looked down at my hands, unable to meet her gaze. "He asked me to get in the shower with him." The silence that followed was one of the most excruciating moments of my life. It stretched on, thick and heavy, suffocating. I didn't dare look up. I was waiting for the scream, the accusation, the horror. Finally she spoke. Her voice was quiet, devoid of the anger I had been bracing for. "And did you?" I looked up then, my eyes meeting hers. They weren't full of accusation, they were full of something else, concern, understanding. "Yes," I said, my voice barely audible. "I did. I kept my underwear on. It was just..." He was so scared, Sarah. He wasn't asking for anything. He was just asking for me to make him feel safe. And I couldn't say no. "I'm sorry. I know it was weird. I know it was probably wrong, but I couldn't leave him like that." I watched her, waiting for the verdict. She walked over to the sofa and sat down next to me, letting out a long, slow breath. "Oh, Alex," she said, her voice soft. "You didn't do anything wrong." I stared at her, certain I had misheard her. "What? You didn't do anything wrong?" she repeated, a sad, tired smile on her face. "He's been like this for weeks. I've been struggling with it. He had a nightmare a while back about something coming up the drain. I've tried everything too, baths, showers with the door open, singing songs. Nothing works. Most nights it ends with both of us in tears and him going to bed without a proper wash. She shook her head, looking down at her hands. I've been so worried. I didn't know what to do. I felt like such a failure of a mom. And you fixed it. You saw he was scared, and you did what you had to do to make him feel safe. Tears of relief pricked at the corners of my eyes. I hadn't been expecting this. I hadn't been expecting forgiveness, let alone understanding. I was so worried you'd be angry, I admitted, my voice thick. Angry? She said, turning to look at me, her own eyes glistening. Alex, you're the best brother in the world, and you're the best Uncle Leo could ever ask for. You did what I, in my exhausted, stressed-out state, couldn't. You faced the monster, literally. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you. Thank you for taking care of my boy's heart. The tension that had been coiling in my gut for hours finally released. I felt a wave of emotion so powerful it left me breathless. I had been so focused on the social implications, on the fear of being misunderstood, that I had almost forgotten the most important thing. Love. The love I had for my nephew, and the love my sister had for both of us. She went in to kiss Leo goodbye, and I heard her whisper to him, I hear you had a big adventure with Uncle Alex tonight. When she came back out, she was smiling. He just mumbled something about you being a naked shield. I'm not sure I want the details, but I'm grateful. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh that felt like it was cleansing my soul. It was as awkward as it sounds. I don't doubt it, she said, grabbing her bag. But you're a good man, Alex. A really, really good man. She left, and the apartment was quiet again. But this time, the silence wasn't filled with anxiety. It was filled with peace. I had learned a lot that night. I had learned that fear can make you do strange things, both for a child and for an adult. I had learned that the rules we live by, the social contracts we all abide by, are sometimes less important than the simple, primal need to protect someone you love. That night, in the steam and the fear, I crossed a line. But in doing so, I had drawn another one, a stronger one, a line of love and trust between me and my nephew. I had faced down a monster, both his and my own, and I had learned that sometimes the most terrifying decisions are the ones that lead us to the most profound understanding of what it means to be a family. Sometimes, being a hero isn't about a grand gesture. Sometimes, it's just about getting in the shower,